And now let me bring in my fresh-baked party panel. It's the Daily Beast and the Week columnist Anthony Fisher, Observer columnist Michael Malice, ooh, there he is, in his lovely white jacket, and Republican strategist and author of GOP GPS, Evan Siegfried. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you. Hey.
Oh, man panel. I just realized I'm outnumbered. President Trump very confident he can successfully repeal and replace Obamacare at a White House dinner with a bipartisan group of senators. The president said he's even convinced it can happen soon.
I know that we're all going to make a deal on health care. That's such an easy one. So I have no doubt that that's going to happen very quickly. I think it will, actually. I think it's going to happen.
Did no one tell him about the pulled legislation? Huh. Remember, the GOP suffered an embarrassing defeat just this past Friday when they had to halt the health care vote. Too many Republicans had vowed to vote against the plan. So can the president actually turn things back around? He says he wants to do it quickly, which I think was maybe one of the elements that really torpedoed this legislation. Was they tried to do it too fast.
Yeah, they tried to do it too fast.
I mean, aside from the 7 years they had, the last 8 weeks were...
They tried to do it too fast. Yeah. They didn't insert anything that really could make the caucus agree on anything. And then they said, all right, we're going to do it. And there was such partisan or rancor on the right that they pulled the bill. And if you actually look at what President Trump's saying, we're still going to repeal it, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's really repair at this point. And he's not going to get the House Freedom Caucus at this point. So he's got to reach out to Democrats and pull them into the fold. But Democrats themselves are going to have problems because their base demands ideological purity.
Yeah.
And for them to refuse any and everything.
I don't even think it's ideological purity. I think that the Democrats just want to make the president lose every chance they get. I think that they are subsisting on bitterness at this point. And it doesn't matter. I mean, you could write the most socialized medicine bill possible, and Nancy Pelosi would still turn up that finely pruned nose.
Isn't it wonderful? Like, I'm imagining Nancy Pelosi calling up Paul Ryan, laughing, and then hanging up the phone. Here's the difference between what I was saying for years, that the greatest thing Trump's going to do is end political discourse in this country. And not only is there no discourse between the parties, we're getting a point where you're not even having discourse within the Republican Party.
Yeah.
There's no way, all those Democrats who voted for Obamacare back in '09, they knew they were going to lose their seats. And they were ready to walk the plank because this is something that they believed in. This is a president they're willing to fall on their sword for. There are no Republicans who are going to fall on their sword for Donald Trump, nor is there a reason for them to do it. So there's no possible way he's going to get this done. And hopefully he's not going to be able to get anything done for the next 4 years.
All right, so what happens? I mean, logistically, if Obamacare enters into what appears to be the death spiral and the healthcare market implodes in this country, insurance companies pull out of the exchanges, there's nothing left, Medicaid contracts. What happens?
I think single payer, because I think there's some hunger on the populist right, like the Mike Huckabee right, for single payer.
Yeah.
And once that domino falls, once you've got socially conservative Rust Belt Republican voters...
How could they say that, though? I mean, how could you call yourself a Republican and get behind something as socialist as single
There's
payer?
plenty of Republicans behind
the Republican
military...
Party is socialism with an old lady at the wheel.
It's awful.
That's what conservatism is.
It's certainly what it has become.
Entitlements, military spending...
Alf Landon, Eisenhower, all these terrible... Dewey, Nixon, these have all been socialists, just in different colored clothes.
That's awful. Well, that's why I'm not a Republican.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Because you know what? I floated your chaos theory earlier this week, and a couple people bit on Twitter and realized that it was your idea that somehow this beautiful chaos will lead to an implosion, and perhaps that's the ultimate goal.
Yes.
Optimism. Meantime, President Trump today signaled he plans to tackle the nation's opioid epidemic.
Opioid overdose deaths have nearly quadrupled since 1999. This is a total epidemic. And I think it's probably almost untalked about compared to the severity that we're witnessing.
I don't know. I think we hear a lot about it. Certainly the opioid addiction is a big issue. It has affected millions of people and their families. But is the president's task force a step in the right direction or another drug war rabbit hole? He's tasking Chris Christie with leading the charge. Is there any worse person in the country who could be?
There might be a handful, but not many.
Yeah.
And the thing about Christie is he's long made opioid addiction and treatment measures a part of his plank in New Jersey. He hasn't really followed up on it with too much action. He also is a terrible drug prohibitionist. Medical marijuana has been legal in New Jersey for 8 years, yet there's only about 2 dispensaries that are open a couple hours a week, and that's all thanks to Chris Christie and his administration. So I'm cautiously optimistic that he takes this seriously and will under the Trump administration. I'm just worried that this will be a cloak for more prohibitionist crackdown.
Yeah, no, it's just a way to enter the drug war from a different front. Evan?
Well, what is a task force in the first place, other than a panel that puts something together and then its report gets thrown out? The key is if President Trump actually listens to them. And what they should talk about is the new health care bill. They should talk about how they should not have what the AHCA had, which was ending mental health parity and imposing caps on coverage, which actually would negatively impact people who are in the middle of the opioid epidemic because it would remove treatment for drug addiction. Additionally, they've got to find a way to really cut down on the amount of illegal drugs coming into the country.
You can treat drug addiction. I don't think that's necessarily the role of the government. It's nice for them to encourage that, but it's really about ending the drug war, isn't it?
If you are going to be persecuting drug addicts and poor people who either are too dumb or who have no other options, who sell drugs in order to make money, you deserve to be treated with every bit of contempt. And the idea this balloon man is going to be telling people what they should do with their public health is disgusting, reprehensible. Trump was a hotel magnate. That's where the biggest place where people do drugs and have prostitutes and all this other stuff. So it's absolutely vile that we have the most people in jail per capita, more than North Korea, and the idea that even more are going to be put in prison, who does that help? And the idea that a drug addict in jail is going to be going through withdrawal, this is absolutely reprehensible, disgusting, and this man should be ashamed of himself.
All right, so in other words, Michael Malice is very optimistic about the Republican solution. The party panel returns just a little bit later. First up, does China have a secret plan to crush our space program? Former UN Ambassador John Bolton is going to join me to discuss the new space race and China's attempt to take over the world, one planet at a time. That's next. Hello, welcome back. Is Donald Trump on a runaway quest to destroy the planet with his giant laser? According to John Podesta, the answer is, hell yes. The former head of Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign and victim of online phishing scams wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post saying, quote, the Trump administration's rampage against the environment poses an existential threat to the entire planet. Wow, is Trump the new Lex Luthor, or is Podesta just fear-mongering? Not that the Democrats would ever do something like that. The party panel is back. Anthony Fisher, Michael Malice, and Evan Siegfried. Anthony, I will start with you. Is there any way to rationally talk about anything anymore, particularly things like immigration and the environment?
No, we must take the most maximalist view possible. We must demonize our enemies, and we must breathe heavily and talk about game theory whenever we have any of these kind of conversations. We were actually talking before. I'm somebody that actually does believe in climate change and does believe that it's man-made, but also thinks that there are ways through innovation, entrepreneurship, that we can address these issues. That it doesn't have to be you're either a monster who wants to repeal all meaningful regulation, or you're a good person who can only save the planet through all kinds of industry choking regulation.
A rich nation will create more technology and more innovation, and squashing entire industries does the opposite of it.
It's great to hear you speaking my native Russian with that commie crap. Here is why climate change is nonsense.
Okay.
If the Democrats really believe that climate change is as catastrophic as they say, they would shut down all discussion until it's solved immediately. If a comet is hitting the Earth, you're not talking about immigration, you're not talking about minimum wage, you're talking about there's a comet coming, we have to destroy the comet. They're full of it. This is just their excuse to further their Gaia worship agenda. And the next time someone starts talking about climate change and the science is settled, ask them to name 2 types of cloud formations and what they look like. If you can't name 2 types of cloud formations, what they look like, maybe you don't know as much about the climate science as you think.
Nimbus and cumulus.
What they look like?
One is dark.
Which one?
The nimbus one is the one with the rain clouds, and cumulus are the ones that look kind of scary, but they're actually benign.
Okay, you're allowed to talk about it.
Boom.
I'm not allowed to talk about it because I have no idea what a cloud of things. But John Podesta, let's be honest, what he's doing, he basically might as well have accused the president of, after signing that executive order yesterday, of going out in the South Lawn and murdering a bunch of penguins. But he's going out and saying that, oh, this is a disaster, this executive order is terrible. The executive order just repealed some redundant regulations, which were overburdensome to businesses and individuals. Not to mention, at the end of the month, we have the People's Climate March, and Podesta's trying to gin up passion about that. And what better way is there to tell people you love the planet than by walking all over
I want to be a resource glutton. I want everything. I want a clean planet and lots of stuff.
And yes, having waste is a symptom of a functional economy. It's good when we have too much food and too much to choose from instead of wondering what we're going to have for dinner tomorrow.
Actually, people who poo-poo abundance have never been in a position.
Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
He doesn't use deodorant. That's
Never
why he
gone
hates that there's
without.
too many types.
He doesn't use a comb either.
He smells nasty. All right, I want to thank you guys so much, Evan, Michael, and Anthony. Congratulations on your new baby girl, Anthony.
Hey, that's true. Thank you.
Well done. A new dad for the
Yes.
third time.
Yes.
All right, coming up, Hollywood liberals still can't get over the fact that Donald Trump is president.